We're going to get started. This is Fire Talks Online for January the 6th, 2021. This is Rainmaker here, and we got a bunch of people here in the Discord and out there on Twitch, YouTube, and Periscope. We got more people trickling in, so thank you everybody for dialing in. So we've got a lot to cover today. First off, let's kind of address the elephant in the room. We've got a lot of stuff going down politically in Washington, D.C. Whiskey, since this is kind of your forte, I want to get your thoughts first, and if anybody has any comments, questions, this is the time. All right, Whiskey's on mute, but that's okay. So for those of you that don't know, we here like to really kind of get to the heart of the protest, regardless if they're, Black Lives Matter or if they're right-wing Trumpers. Getting an inside view is really powerful. And so Whiskey was there for the Dallas events. By the way, we've got a little bit of feedback there, Jake W. If you can mute yourself, bud, appreciate it. Oh, no, I just wish I didn't chase him off, but hopefully we'll jump back in. But anyway, yeah, so anybody have any comments about what's going down there?
Hey, did you mention my name? Sorry, I was having audio issues.
Yeah, I did. I was just going to ask what your thoughts were about the stuff going down in Washington today.
Oh, okay, sorry. Yeah, it's nutty for sure. I mean, I never thought in a million years that you would see not only something like this go down from a spectacle perspective, but then, of course, because we live in the age we do, there's plenty of live streamers out there. So having unprecedented access to such a historic moment is something that shouldn't be forgotten in all of this mess. I mean, from the perspective of the Congress persons, the media involved, the streamers that were part of the group, the rioters that went in there, this moment of being able to open up on my laptop and have like 6 different views of this is an insane reality that, I don't know, from someone who's gone out there and done the live streams and then turn around and see other people in that moment. It's kind of nutty. I don't know. It was one thing if you go to that woke stream on Twitch, you would be able to see way better perspective of what was going on than what I could see on CNN, NBC, any of the major outlets. So from that perspective, I think it's absolutely bananas. I could have never imagined any of this playing out and then getting this like movie-esque multi-view perspective of what was going down.
Yeah, it's been surreal, man. And one thing I do want to clarify, I may have said protesters earlier. You actually corrected me. These guys were rioters, and that's not acceptable by any means.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing for you to like walk in there, and there is that thing of like destruction of property versus humans. You shouldn't shoot someone if they're just destroying property because they're not risking human life. There's that whole debate around that, but it's not even about like, you can't compare this to anything that we've seen before because this is an attempt by these people to interrupt our
civic process. Yeah.
Like, it's insane that there's people online trying to compare this to the George Floyd protest.
Absolutely not.
In the context. It is not apples to apples in any kind of way here. This is not even fruit related. This is complete nutty, like you can't compare this. It's insane.
Yeah. Well, we'll see what happens with the rest of what's going down tonight. There's a 6 p.m. curfew that's already in effect. Again, watching the streams, which, by the way, woke.net is down, so can't seem to be watching the streams there. I'm only watching on the major media outlets, but we'll see how the rest of the evening plays out. Any other thoughts before we move on to our next topic? Because we have time is of the essence today. Anybody else have a point to make here?
Yeah, I have a cyber-related note from this.
Yeah.
Did y'all see the picture of Nancy Pelosi's email?
The picture of Nancy Pelosi's email?
Yeah.
She left
Yeah.
the computer unlocked when she walked away from it. Obviously, the struggle to get away in haste means that her computer was left unlocked.
And there's no group
And
policy to lock it after a period of time?
Well, either that or they got in before that. But my thought
Someone's
was,
going to have to retake the InfoSec training.
no, I mean, think about it, right? The whole thing about physical access, and once you get physical access to something, you own it. What do you think the odds are that, knowing that a protest in D.C. was planned long in advance, maybe we didn't know that they were going to storm the Capitol building, but how much would you bet that zero of our enemies did not have someone in place to plant something on those networks or those devices?
Well, I can speak firsthand. Knowing several people that are in the government, I won't say which branch or which organization, but they had Chinese citizens roaming the halls unsupervised, and that very situation happened. So to think that that would happen in a circumstance like this, very, very possible.
So what you're saying is that scenario may have already happened prior to today.
Yes, 100%.
Well, that's terrifying.
Yeah, I know. They were there for a conference and were unsupervised walking the halls, and who knows what happened. And lo and behold, yes, malware was implanted. So, again, can't say much more than that.
Surprising. Think about this, though. Think about how the point is the physical security ramifications of this whole ordeal. And you think about how, when I'm watching on the news, they're talking about how these people have breached a highly secure door, and how they're explaining how they have breached this highly secure door is taking a flag post and ramming it through a window. This is what I'm talking. Like, what? Like, we couldn't keep these people back. What has kept us from this happening ever before? Like, if an actual group of insurgents wanted to go and do this in a completely confrontational manner with arms, like, how far would they get before they're shut down? Because this is insane. I would never thought that a flag post is what could breach the House of Congress, but here we are today.
Well, I think there was some level of restraint in that, that was. I don't know if it was even justified, because, I mean, if you had this many of BLM protesters, or if you had, 5,000 Muslim protesters, do you think that the level of response would be different? I tend to think so.
I think it would not, unless Trump needed to go do a photo shoot, and then he would probably push all of those people aside.
Yeah.
But, I mean, yeah, you're right. No, totally. It is a situation where it's a double standard. Only one person was shot and killed? That's surprising to me, honestly.
It's very surprising to me. And by the way, I believe the news outlet said that the woman did pass away, so there was a fatality in this. It's terrible, sad thing stuff.
Only 13 arrests so far.
Only 13. And so many people weren't, and ironically, so many people weren't wearing masks. So, I mean, they're all on camera. And I hope that arrests follow suit, because, again, this was unacceptable. So, all right. Any other comments about the storming of the Capitol? All right. Well, I've got a guest speaker here today, folks. You kind of heard us talking earlier. One of our friends, Mr. Jason Martang, we call him Martang for short, he is working for CISIS now, who does automated pen testing. Now, I know that the concept of automated pen testing is fairly new and raises, my own included, some eyebrows regarding how it works and the functionality behind it. So I wanted to give Jay an opportunity to kind of tell us about CISIS, what they do. I promise we're not going to do a whole lot of vendor talking, but I figured this was appropriate just to kind of demonstrate the concept of what CISIS is, what the future of automated pen testing is, and whether or not there will be a need for human interaction in pen testing going forward. So, Jay, the floor is yours, and if you want to share your screen for any demos, you just go right ahead, okay?
Well, appreciate that. And how's everybody doing? Again, my name is Jay Martang. I really appreciate you folks for giving me some time to speak here today. I had worked with some of the folks here on the line and recently transitioned over into CISIS, which stands for Proactive Cyber Systems. Now, we can take this conversation however you want. I did have, and for me, right, one of the big things that got me really excited was looking at the technology and what it could do. And my plan was basically just for maybe about 20 minutes, kind of showing you what we are trying to do and what our go-to-market strategy is for many different customers out in the wild, right, and how we can and really assist that. So let me see if I can just share my screen really fast, and I'll get into some of the background here.
Hey, Martin, while you're doing that, could you adjust your microphone? You're coming through super quiet.
Really low? Okay, hold on.
Yeah, really low. I normally have that when I accidentally point my microphone at the ceiling
How about
instead
now?
of my mouth.
Yeah, you're coming in loud and proud
that
now.
is so much better.
Okay. Yeah, I was picking up some feedback before, so I thought I might have been the trimmer for the mic. So, all right, cool. So let's see, let's share this screen. All right, can you guys see this?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so we've been in business now for a couple years, and our founder was really coming out of the Israeli Defense Forces and was running the red team there, and then made a jump and decided to automate what red teaming and penetration testing really is. And our biggest, I would say, our biggest play or our strategy is that we're agentless and we're not a breach and attack simulation tool. We're actually perpetrating and leveraging vulnerabilities and exploits inside the environment the same way a manual penetration tester would do, but not being constrained to 8 hours or running out of Mountain Dew or Twinkies and that sort of thing. So we are backed by Insight Partners and Blackstone Group, and we've been growing and growing, and I was part of one of the initial growing of the sales team here, and now I live out in Southern California, and I'm out here now. Now, most of our customers, right, when we're starting to think about what's driving this at organizations, it falls into a couple of different buckets. The first would naturally be why you would have or hire a manual penetration tester, right? Risk footprint establishment. You're not really sure what the current risk in the environment is. You might have different segments in the environment that you want to test. Are critical assets at risk, right? You just don't know. The second, right, would be security tool and process validation. So maybe you have security tools in the environment, EDRs, privilege account management, SIMs, or maybe you're using an MSSP, or again, maybe you have like a SOC and you want to see, okay, well, can they detect certain attacks? Can we, how fast can we respond? If we make certain process changes, right, can we validate that? This is all, again, done in a quick manner because you're now using an automated tool to go about the process of what your traditional red teaming would be. And then, of course, right, there's just red team assistance. Now, this is more on the more secure side of the house, but if you have a red team, this tool can actually automate and take a lot of those, I would say, day-to-day tasks potentially, and get that out of the way so your team can focus on different initiatives, whether that's specific app security, DevOps, or whichever. So it's usually a combination of one of those three or thereof, and it just really depends on what the initiatives are and what you're currently doing in regards to that, and in regards to really like vulnerability management and process management.
By the way, I have a quick question for you, Jay.
Yeah.
We have something that we do at Dallas Hackers, and that we also do here at Fire Talks. And you can either turn this on or turn this off. But troll mode. Do you mind if people interject, ask you questions as we go, or do you want to open up Q&A at the end?
Oh no, that's fine. Yeah, ask me questions as you go. That's no problem at all.
Okay. Looks like you just quit streaming.
Yep, and I'm changing my screen.
Okay, good deal. So any questions so far?
Yeah, I've got one. And you may be addressing this because I imagine this is a common question. But where do you draw the line and how do you define the difference between a vulnerability scan and an automated pen test?
Yes.
Yep, that's exactly right. So I'll get into that right now. So what we're looking at, and that is actually one of what we would call testing scenarios. So I just put up my screen, so you should be able to see I'm actually in the tool right now. And I'll address that question in a minute here. What I like to talk and like what I just like to discuss first is really critical assets, right? Because this is going to change based on the organization, and everything really should be based on criticality of what those assets are. So we have the ability to take inside some of that information. So maybe you have servers that are hosting certain intellectual property or information, or maybe it's a web server or whatever. It really depends on the business. But you can define that here, and that will actually impact scores later on, as you'll see. Some other cool things that I like to just point out too in the beginning is we actually have a custom password cracking dictionary. So out here in Los Angeles, Dodgers won, so I can put in words like that. Lakers won. COVID is killing us right now, right? So I mean, you can put in a bunch of different things, whatever you think your user's passwords would be. And the reason why we do this is because Pantera, which is our product, as you can see here, Pantera has its own password cracking engine. So as we go about and we start sniffing credentials, which is one of the things we'll start doing, once we find those credentials, we will actually go out and try and crack them using some of the dictionary words here. Now the question was how do you draw the line between vulnerability assessment and a pen test, right? And it really comes down to these different testing scenarios, which we have 4. Now, you have most of the time our customers start out with your traditional black box testing, which is you don't know anything about the network. It would be similar to, hey, give the guy in the hoodie a cube, have him sit down, and let him just go to work. So you don't know anything with the black box test, and you go out and you find stuff, and we'll get into that. I actually have one running right now. The second scenario is a targeted test. So a targeted test would be we want to specifically test a scenario. Maybe there is something, again, a process change that we wanted to validate, and we wanted to run a specific scenario to see if that scenario is still exploitable inside the environment. So it's more of like trying to hone in on the target and seeing if we can get there. Then there's gray box. So gray box is like a what if. So this is, again, now where you may have a scenario you want to simulate if a credential may have been popped. So for example, you have developers or you have privileged users. What would happen if Rainmaker's ID was phished? Or what if you clicked on a link and now his account was compromised, and we can see what we can get with his account inside the environment. We can also give a end destination. Can we get to this specific file? Or this target on the network. So that's the what if. Now, the last thing here is a general vulnerability assessment, which we also do. And the difference, to answer the question, is a vulnerability assessment is really just looking at vulnerabilities, where the penetration test itself and these 3 different scenarios are going to be exploiting what those vulnerabilities are. The vulnerabilities are really just a means to an end, with the end being what we call achievements, which you'll see here in a minute. Does that answer your question? I'm not sure who asked, so I'm just...
Yeah, that was me. It's getting there. It still sounds like a fancy vulnerability scan, but let's see what else you got.
Okay, well, let's take a look at the black box, and I'll show you how we set one up, and then I'll actually get into the test that's running. So here's how we can go about and just set up a quick test. I can include the ranges from where I want to scan. I can also exclude certain ranges or certain IPs if I want. This is where I would specify the duration. So maybe I want this to go for, again, 3 days, right? This is something that I can just continually run. No one has to go home and go to sleep. I can also automatically rescan, meaning if there are assets you think might be coming on in the environment, I can automatically research for any specific new machines inside the environment. That is what we're going to do first. We're going to enumerate everything and see what we can discover. Then we can tweak the stealthiness level. So do we want to be super stealthy and try and fly under the radar? Or do we want to be super noisy and set off all the bells and whistles? Again, different use cases here. If we're trying to do more process validation and see if we can detect things, maybe we want to be super noisy, right? How quickly can we respond? On the contrary, maybe we just rolled out, again, more tools and we want to see if they can detect things on the more stealthy level, and we can tweak it that way. Most of the customers start here in the middle. And then once they have a good baseline, then they'll start tweaking with the different levels of noisy versus quiet. Now, one thing that we should point out that is with us, we don't want to do any harm. So even though we're dropping malware and we're doing exploits, everything is like using benign payloads. And we can require approval. So you'll see what that means here in a minute. But essentially what these are just settings and saying, hey, anything that we want to exploit, we'll just choose approvals first. Again, this might be good if you're trying to see a reaction time. You can say, yeah, let's start an exploit right now, and then see how long it takes to respond. So these are just settings that, again, are more for, hey, let's do services brute force and just require approvals. And then, of course, I can schedule this and send notifications and emails out to anybody we want. And then I would kick off a scan. Now, that's what I have running right now. So let's actually get into it, because this is really the meat of it. So I have a scan running. This is a black box test that I have running on the network in my lab. And the data here is pretty much, it's all linked together. Okay, so we have achievements on the left, which is what I was actually able to do, vulnerabilities to current activity, so what is actually happening, and then the approvals, the list of approvals and exploits that I can approve. Now, my eyes usually end up going towards the bottom here for some reason, and this is the list of machines that we've enumerated based on vulnerabilities that were discovered. Now, you can see some of them right here are blinking, which means there's an active exploit actually happening on that machine. And if I look at one of these machines, I can see that there's 8 actions. So this 2012 machine, for example, if I go in here, I actually have some things that I can approve. So I can do some, I could do fileless credential extraction or file-based credential extraction, again, based on what I'm trying to test. Am I trying to see, maybe I have an application whitelisting software and I want to see if it'll, file this will get around that. So I can just, okay, yeah, let's approve that. And I can do like a malware download, for example.
Does this integrate with any other like pen testing frameworks?
Such as
Metasploit, PowerShell Empire, anything like that? Like, can you use this to deploy a Meterpreter shell?
So, not at the moment, but I think that might be coming. So what we're doing is we're basically taking all those tools and kind of consolidating them ourselves.
Okay.
So it's moving away from stuff that you would normally do, right, that you would typically do, to kind of just automate the process, right?
Got it.
Now, once I do that, you can see here I'm getting new achievements, right? So I approve that. Let's take a look at this Windows 10 machine and see what I got on here too. Let's build a host profile. Let's do another fileless credential extraction. Let's approve that.
So approving is basically kicking off the workflow, right?
Kicking off the exploit.
Okay.
That's exactly right. Yep. And let's maybe do like printer bug or something. Right. So again, now I could automate, and a lot of our customers will move to like a situation where they auto approve. But again, for now, right, we'll have them approved here. So you can either go into individual machines and approve that, or you can take a look at all the approvals here. As you can see, these are all just listed with the hosts. Okay. Now, like I mentioned, all the data here is somewhat linked. So the achievements are what was actually done, but really it all starts with those vulnerabilities. So if I click on vulnerabilities first, you'll see here that we have vulnerabilities that were listed out and found. Here's another achievement, right? So as come in, you'll get notifications about that. But for example, maybe inside here I'm saying, okay, so there are hosts that are vulnerable to MS1710, right, which is Eternal Blue. I click on this, I get some insight, and I can see exactly what happened. And then I can actually go into some detailed remediation. So we actually have our own wiki, which kind of gets into what specific vulnerabilities are. And, if I didn't know, right, again, it's all about education and trying to bring value to our customers. So someone who may not be familiar with this may take a look and say, oh, okay, well, this is Eternal Blue, and this is what WannaCry was built off of. Oh, maybe that's so proven. Oh, my gosh, now I know, right, inside the environment that Eternal Blue has been found, as well as a couple other things, right? Antivirus did not block a malicious payload. zero logon, blue key. Now, all of this, right, is all the severity score is tied to CDSS scoring. But what's different is we have a remediation priority here, because vulnerabilities are just vulnerabilities. Now, most often, right, and even with the customers I've spoken to, they are going to prioritize based on severity. However, our remediation priority is going to be different based on impact. So this specific vulnerability here, for example, right, is all based on credentials being sniffed on the network. Right now, of course, and this is the remediation and recommendation here is to disable LLMNR. Right now, if I go into the remediation again, this will give me a nice explanation of what this is and why it's important. Right. It
Yeah,
also
somebody
take
just
me
did
to-
responder on the network, and so that's how they were. You simply did a ARP cache spoofing on here.
Yep.
Yeah, cool. So that's fairly. We see that all the time in pen tests, and you're saying that's the highest priority on versus like Eternal Blue.
Well, for now, right? And the reason is, right, is because where Eternal Blue is number 2, right? But the reason being, right, that this remediation is number 1 is because of the achievements and what we were able to do. So like I mentioned, vulnerabilities are a means to an end. The achievements are what we were actually able to do inside the environment. So here's what we were actually able to do, right? We were able to create a domain admin user. We were able to get the clear text password. We were able to exploit critical hosts. Now, remember, if you recall at the top, right, we put in inputs for critical hosts. This is why this is so high, because we were able to actually pop those machines. Now, a lot of these vectors here, for example, let's just take 5. Right, starts out with a vulnerability, and then there are vectors. It's basically the kill chain that starts out with that. Okay, now this, right, even though we were able to exploit this host, really all started out because we were able to sniff that credential. Here's that 5.5. Now, if I click on this, that'll bring me back into the remediation wiki. But the reason why this is prioritized top is because if we simulate this fix and we prioritize this first, this will actually knock out the rest of those vectors. So the goal for this, and why this is different than just vulnerability scanning, is actually seeing what's exploitable and what can transpire in the network to then prioritize and make sure that we can fix that. And then it's rinse and repeat. Here's why. Once we simulate that fix, right, we can go to the infrastructure team and say, hey, did we disable this? Did we do that? We can now rerun a test or a targeted test to make sure that we cannot do this again. And it's all about low-hanging fruit. Get the low-hanging fruit, get the low-hanging fruit.
All right, Jay, I'm going to give you probably about 5 more minutes for this, because this is Fire Talks. So,
yeah, sure.
Questions so far, guys? Girls, ladies, people? No questions? Okay, keep going.
Yeah. So, I mean,
go ahead.
Question?
On that screen where you list what is the customer does?
You're breaking up, Rex.
Who determines the critical asset? And
that's
critical assets is incomplete.
You don't need that. It just helps to give context, right? So you don't necessarily need that. What we would do if that was the case, we wouldn't have a high score here, right? We would still have hosts were exploited, but it may not be as high as a criticality. So you don't necessarily have to have that, but it's something I like to include because most often organizations do have some type of contextual information to what's important inside their environment.
If their CMDB is wrong, and you input that CMDB into the system criticality and it's wrong, what happens then?
Well, I mean, so that, yeah, I mean, if you input something we call it critical, then we're going to, if it's exploited, we're going to give it a high risk score. So yeah, I mean, we want to have good information and actual critical information if we're going to label it that way. Yeah, so we're going to all those, like the host, for example, that we discovered here is all auto discovered. So we're going to go out and based on the range that we're scanning, we're going to go out and discover these hosts, run the vulnerability scan, and then try and start popping and see what we can get into, remote connect, all that stuff based on what we're approving here. Yep. And then things like, again, if we're finding credentials, we're going to go out, we're going to go validate them. We're going to see, here's one that some of my friends here on the line will probably appreciate, right? Did we find a local user account with privileges on other machines? Right? So did we find a local administrator that has access on all these other machines?
We know
Why?
nothing about
Right?
that. That's completely new to us. Tell us more.
Right? So this is, again, it kind of goes back to what we're looking to do, right? Are we looking to see where we can start implementing process changes? What can we easily fix? And if we take a look at the top of this chain, what's at the top of this chain? The very easily fixable solution just by disabling LLM&R and that sort of thing, right? Simulate it, knock out all the vectors.
How soon from when the CVE is posted till the achievement is released or updated? How soon is that typically?
Yeah. So what we do first, again, remember, we're trying to make sure that we're not going to be doing any harm. So it does depend on how quickly we develop an exploit that is going to be safe for our customers. So it varies. I know that, what was it, Blue Keep, I think, was in a matter of days. It just depends on how quickly our team can develop the exploit for it.
For vulnerabilities that don't have that ability, for more like DDoS vulnerabilities, is that just a vulnerability assessment and just a demonstrate, or just a noting of that? What about payloads for DDoS exploits or vulnerabilities?
Yeah. We're not going to run DDoS exploit because, again, we don't want to bring anything down. But we would show that as potential, but we would show that as a vulnerability.
But you would show it. That's good. That's what I wanted to hear.
We would show, yeah. We just wouldn't actually exploit it because, again, we're not trying to blue screen or bring anything down or anything like that. The last thing I'll just talk about, right, is, of course, all this information can be mapped to MITRE. Right, so I click on that. And we'll get a nice little heat map. Now, this all, again, depends on what's been running. This is still running, so this will continue to populate as this goes about. And then in the end, right, you're going to get a summary report. Where's one? I thought I had one. Here we go. Now, this is where you're going to get a resilience score based on what you were running. So naturally, you might get a grade. You want to make some changes, rerun it again, and hopefully that score and that risk footprint is getting smaller and smaller based on the vulnerabilities, the exploits that were found, and the recommendations that we were recommending to change and fix. And it's not always bad news, right? I mean, you might actually be blocking things. This would be good, right? Maybe again, your processes are blocking certain things, but maybe you have a lot of privileged users in the environment. Maybe your passwords are not up to snuff from a strength perspective, and we're able to crack most of them in a quick amount of time. Maybe the network's really flat, and we're able to move laterally to a bunch of different machines on the network. Like, this is it's all meant to give you a risk posture and an understanding, right? With low-hanging fruit, here's the vulnerabilities here that, again, will bring you to either some information with Microsoft and give you some information there. There's the Blue Keep one. Using easy-to-guess passwords, right? This is all in the report. Scroll down. We'll hit the achievements here at some point.
Does this report include any screenshots or like proof positive that these were successful?
Only the thing. So if this were, for example, if these achievements are listed, it was done. The exploits were done. So these are all being taken from the actual, from the actual achievements that were done. If these achievements are listed here, that means we exploited. Like, we were able to do it.
Excellent.
Like, we got a remote session on that host. Like, it's done.
Does it tell the person who's applying the remediation how to test if the remediation was successfully applied?
Yes. So let's just do so that, again, is like with the remediation wiki, right? So if we want to disable this, right, it'll go in, it'll give you information on how to change the environment to tighten it up. And then, right, towards the bottom, here's how you can use Pantera for validation. Run a targeted test, right, and rerun that, and then see if it still exists.
Very cool. All right, Jay, this is really excellent. This seems like a pen test all in one. My question to you is does this replace an actual human pen test? And follow-up question, does this apply to compliance for organizations, requirements for pen test? Is this something that would be in lieu of a physical pen, or not a physical, but a human engaged pen test?
Yeah. So what we're seeing is yes, we are replacing your traditional human and third-party assessments with this. Or what we're also seeing, right, is that maybe those teams are using this in their efforts. So it's either a mix of those two. We have not done the compliance check mark yet, but I believe we're on the way. We have a lot of other features that are going to be coming out this year to try and hit those compliance check marks. But to answer your question, we have been seeing this replace your traditional penetration testing, just really from a cost perspective and a time perspective. The amount of, the quick amount of time that you can go out. I mean, our proof of concepts run a day, because in a matter of hours, you can run a pen test and get a comprehensive report and really see what's going on, as opposed to like a 2 to 3 week engagement or something like that you may only do once a year.
Yeah. Okay. And this you can just
What's
run.
the largest?
I'm sorry, I heard 2 questions there.
Go ahead, Kyle. No, you go ahead, Kyle. Go ahead.
What's the largest environment this has been running?
Thousands of IPs. I mean, we can scale out because we have remote attack nodes, so we can grow as big. I don't have this specific. I know, again, we had customers all over the world at this point. I'd have to get you the specifics, but it's thousands of IPs.
So what's your horror story? What's the big story you tell your clients, like you've been able to pop? Tell us the big fish story.
I mean, it's the big fish is coming in and being able to get things like domain admin, things that you would traditionally think is kind of end game type of stuff, or seeing things that were patched long ago, like Eternal Blue, that is still in the environment and they don't know, or they're just not, for some reason they haven't done it. So it's like we go in and we, in a matter of hours, we can just figure this out and show and say, look, this is low hanging fruit. You guys should really do this and get this done now.
Very cool.
It's just a matter of, it's just really just a matter of, instead of doing it and getting the paperwork and then having someone come in, it's push of a button, run it, know with certainty that the exploits are there and that it can be done with proof.
Right on, man. Well, hey, we're right up against the time, so we're going to open it up for just Q&A at this point. Anybody got any questions, comments for Jay? All right. Well, very good.
I appreciate it. Yeah, thank you very much. This is, I'm excited about it. We're just trying to get our name out there and really, bring value to our customers. So I appreciate everyone's time.
Jay, one last thing. We at #DayJob, we do miss you, man. So we're glad you've we're glad you've landed at CISIS and that you've got a great product here. I look forward to seeing you guys blow up. And yeah, we really appreciate your time, man.
Cool, appreciate it. Thank you.
One last question, Jay.
Yeah.
Protein of choice.
Oh, Muscle Farm Combat chocolate milk.
By the way, Jay's ripped as hell, so yeah.
Oh, you guys flatter me.
All right. Well, thank you again, Jay. Appreciate your time. We're going to move forward into our next our next section of Fire Talks. This one is probably another elephant in the room. The big cybersecurity news of the last couple of weeks. SolarWinds. Is anybody not familiar with what's been going on in Austin and everywhere else for that matter? This is the good old supply chain attack. This is basically attackers were in the network of SolarWinds upwards of November. They were able to crack into the update server, pushed a malicious update that installed a backdoor on every one of their clients that were using the Orion software. Since then, thousands, 18,000 clients of theirs did update to that particular version. And after that, it was a manual interaction between APT29, Cozy Bear, to get into these networks. So the higher the visibility of the victim, the more likely that these branches of the government, large companies like Microsoft and FireEye, were subsequently compromised. So there are a large number of organizations that are currently doing a full wipe and reload of their infrastructure, and many don't even know that they have been breached. It's a scary time. I hate the fact that they're alluding to this phrase, but I've heard the term Cyber Pearl Harbor or Cyber 9/11. Those were directly kinetic attacks with human life, whereas this is yet to cause a human life to cease. So I don't think that that's a real accurate comparison. But this is significant. This is historic. This is bad, folks. So anyway, does anybody have any questions about the breach before I kind of ask a couple other questions of you all?
I want to toss in some dates and stuff on that, because you mentioned November, but we're right at the beginning of the year. So that was November 2019.
Yes.
And the exploits were been known to be in customer networks between March
right?
of 2020 all the way through until October, November, December of this 2020. So you said November, and that's fine, but we were like right at the beginning of a new year, so November would be like 3 months ago.
Right, my apologies. November of 2019 was when the initial breach into SolarWinds. However, the push of the Orion backdoor was, yes, around March. And so we've gone something like 9 months of since that update. So you're absolutely right. Thank you, Jonathan. Appreciate that. Do you prefer Jonathan or John?
I don't care. I respond to Oi as well, and Thingy, and guy with a British accent.
Okay, well, I like Jonathan. That's what I've always known you as, so I'll continue to do that if it's cool by you.
That's fine.
So one of the things that I found really, really interesting was post-breach, the exploitation of SAML and the SAML signing certificates to basically bypass any sort of SAML authentication. This is really crazy shit. It's similar to the Active Directory golden ticket attack. This is something that my day job's been talking about for 3 years. Does anybody has anybody even used this golden SAML attack or know what I'm talking about?
It's almost like you planned your talk 3 months ago for that very release.
I know, right? Like I said, we've been talking about this for quite some time now, and only now is it really getting any notoriety. But this is how the attackers have now been able to breach Office 365. They're using SAML for auth. There be any web app that's using SAML is now vulnerable. It's pretty scary stuff. Even if we're using SAML in our my day job's tool, that could possibly be exploited due to this golden SAML attack. So this is really kind of where we're talking about how to go about protecting the AD Kerberos ticket granting service. The same sort of controls apply now to your ADFS servers and things like that. Not cool by any measure.
Yeah, when you look at your single sign-on solutions, your IAMs and all of that, where if you set it up yourself, when you start setting up a key cloak server or something like this, you start to understand how it all ties together. It's not that big of a surprise that this would be an attack vector. It's just not something that I think anyone was really thinking too much about, because they're usually not the ones setting up the infrastructure to even be too cognitive of the fact that there are these golden ticket vulnerabilities for these single sign-on systems.
Yeah, good point. I mean, it's usually the people that set up the systems are less concerned about the security behind it, but more just the operations, getting it up and working as soon as possible. So yeah, good call. Now, one of the things that I've been asked by Luddites online is, should they be concerned? Should they be concerned about their personal data? I've got my own thoughts on that, but I'm going to kind of poll you. Should I be concerned about APT 29 and all these data breaches?
No, because it was an intelligence gathering mission, much like the CIA does to other companies, including U.S.-based companies. I mean, honestly, all that's really happened here is that Russia did one of our tricks, and we caught them. And so they're the baddie today, but we're the baddie as well ourselves in the U.S. because we do this all the time. So, do I feel like my data should be at risk in the enterprise environment? Well, yeah, always. I mean, this is the thing we've been talking about: the supply chain, your vendors. What does your vendor security look like? I mean, SolarWinds is a security solutions provider, and don't forget, during all of this, we get to forget that FireEye was also compromised by this exact thing. And why the hell did it take FireEye so long themselves to discover this? So really, it's not even about the Bears. Okay, it's about the fact that we dropped the ball across the board with 18,000 enterprise customers. Could not detect this shit until when? Yeah, that's the real story.
Here's the crazy part about that, Whiskey, is do you know what actually was the event that caused the investigation? It was a multi-factor registration. Yeah, it was Duo.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so basically the attackers got lazy and wanted to get their own MFA activation, and so that alert kicked off an incident response chain. And so, yeah, we can actually thank Duo and Multifactor for saving the day, quote unquote. So, yeah, interesting shit.
But that is actually an embarrassing thing for all security vendors, that out of all of them, Duo is the thing in the chain that saved the day. You got to be kidding me.
It could have just as been RSA or anything else. It's just the fact that multi-factor registering a device was what saved the day ultimately.
I'm not saying anything negative about Duo. Trust me, I love that company and their products. So what I'm saying though is that shouldn't be when we discover this. It should be on the network level. If you've got all of these intelligent AI magical tools that are solving the universe of security, why was it an MFA incident that caused this breach for 18,000 enterprises? I mean, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's insane.
But your answer before that... Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, Mike.
Magical tools won't protect me, Whiskey? Gasp.
I couldn't hear what you said.
The magical tools won't protect me, Whiskey? I'm just...
I think that the right magical tool might be able to help you out.
Well, back to the original question. I didn't hear you. Go ahead.
Oh, I just said apparently Duo is the magical tool. For
today, at least. But back to the original question about whether or not regular people's data is at risk. Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. It's no more at risk than it was prior. The attackers aren't looking for mom and pop. They're looking for Microsoft. They're looking for FireEye. They're looking at the White House or whatnot. So it's very interesting for that reason. They're going after the bigger fish. We're inconsequential from a personal perspective. One thing is, if your organization was running Orion and you don't know if you've been compromised or not, shoot me a DM or send me a message on Twitter, and we'll have a quick conversation. So,
how many people you pissed off?
How many people have I pissed off? Oh, I piss off people every day.
For a mom and pop stores to piss off people, wouldn't they be a target?
I would think so, but you'd have to raise some red flags, no pun intended, in Russia. I would assume, because that's currently who has their feet in the door of all these different organizations. They don't care about us. It's about an information gathering aspect. No more than like the OPM breach. There hasn't been a whole lot of fallout personally from that, right? But yeah,
So could this? I'm sorry, I was going to say, could this be an argument against patching policies?
what? Just assume breach and just say hey, we're screwed one way or another.
Well, no, I mean because this rolled out with a specific update, right? So if your organization didn't patch to that, if you didn't update to that specific patch, they didn't get access.
But there'd be vulnerabilities in the product event, unless it's absolutely foolproof, and there's no such thing. There's always going to be a vulnerability, right? It's just which exploit are they going to take advantage of?
Nihilistic security.
It was tongue in cheek.
Ah, sorry. I can't tell because none of y'all are sharing your webcams, so I can't see that smirky look on your face. I'm looking at you, Whiskey. So, or hyperbolic, hypothetical. Yes. But yeah, you're absolutely right, though, to some degree. Is it Dinovan?
Yeah. I'm Zero's friend.
Oh, well, welcome. But yeah, you're right. I mean, unfortunately, there will always be a vulnerability. If not today in Orion software, I mean, shit, take a look at every single Patch Tuesday. There will always be a vulnerability. It's just what made this one in particularly damning was the fact that it was the supply chain attack. It really affected multiple people. So yeah, that was the scary piece about this was the supply chain. All right.
Talking about this supply chain on that, I don't know if you heard any of the details that were released or talked about today or yesterday, but the FBI is actually investigating another company called JetBrains. If you've ever done any development work, especially in the .NET realm, you've definitely heard of JetBrains, but they were originally a Russian company. They moved to Czechoslovakia, but they do tons of dev tools that get used in all kinds of areas in development, and they're now being investigated as a potential link to the compromise of SolarWinds.
Really? So so that was the initial potential breach that then allowed the Russians in to facilitate the supply chain attack?
That's what they're hypothetical.
Damn, that is so badass. I mean, like JetBrains is what you like. They're the company behind Android Studio, if I remember correctly. Google just decided to stop fucking with Eclipse and just had some partnership with JetBrains to where they use that for Android Studio. So that means I definitely have that on my machine.
What's crazy is like a bunch of news places that like list them as being like an obscure company, but if you ever go and talk to a developer, especially in the .NET realm and early on .NET developers, they're a very well-known company. Like you take a look at any of their product listing, you probably look at it and go, "Oh, I've heard of that. Oh, I've heard of that." It's like a whole bunch of stuff that flies in there, and they do all kinds of stuff. So yeah, they're not an obscure company. But it's funny that they might be the original source.
Yeah, I mean they're everywhere. If you do any development to JetBrains, their IDEs are usually the best ones that you could use. So that is huge.
So do we think that anybody using JetBrains is just as vulnerable as running SolarWinds? Good food for thought.
Who knows? If I had to guess, if I were to do this, I would be looking at any of the JetBrains hosted infrastructure first as what I would try to own, because if you try to do a supply chain attack, the inevitable is going to occur where that phoning home is going to get you. So if you could compromise it on the server side, like what we saw SolarWinds do with, deploying it, if we look at how you would potentially go and attack this, if they, store credentials, or if there's any kind of cloud, dev management, Git repo, magic sauce that they have, I could see that as be where I would personally attack versus try to compromise every single IDE of every dev that uses JetBrains, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, that's good to know about JetBrains and how that ties into FireEye and Orion and SolarWinds. So that's good. And for the sake of time, we've got still a ton of stuff to cover today. So I'm going to move on from SolarWinds into our next topic. This is going to be UberKitten's opportunity to be the devil's advocate. We're going to talk about cryptocurrency. We're going to be talking about Bitcoin today. As of about 30 minutes ago, the price was about $36,817 for a single Bitcoin. Thoughts on this before I kind of start pelling the questions? Any comments about the cryptocurrency world right now and the price of Bitcoin?
Is it too late to buy?
That's a great question, and it depends on who you ask. UberKitten, is it too late to buy Bitcoin, and is that a good investment? I'm just throwing you softballs.
It's never too late to not buy. It's never too late to not buy Bitcoin and never think of it or to use it ever again.
Yes, Maya is absolutely a Buttcoin aficionado and hates cryptocurrency. Notice that we're not saying crypto because crypto is cryptography. We're talking about cryptocurrency today. But, I mean, if you're looking at it from a short-term investment, I mean, just in like 2013, it was, I think I was doing it in 2012, 2013, where it was $135. I would have been sitting on several hundred thousands of dollars if I had just maintained that investment, you know. So when is the bottom going to drop? I don't know. But, you know, where do you all see Bitcoin a year from now?
I see it being the same speculative market that it is that has no relevance to our day-to-day life. I mean, if you think about it, it's kind of the equivalent of the stock market in so many ways. Are you using this for currency, or are you using this as a speculative market? If you want a currency that this is supposed to be, then it's got to not be worth $100,000 for a Bitcoin. You know what I mean?
Well,
Not now, at least.
the thing is, though, is you can buy and spend in fractions, micro fractions of those amounts. So I think a Bitcoin is an arbitrary number. Just the fact that there is a decentralized currency that's outside of the control of a government or institution, I think is pretty damn cool. Whether it's Bitcoin or something else, I don't know. But I think there's some place for cryptocurrency. I just don't know if it's Bitcoin, you know? So my question to you all, go ahead.
That's my view, yeah. Bitcoin, you're asking specifically about Bitcoin, that's a speculative currency. That's always going to be a marketplace for those investors. I think that other cryptocurrencies like Monero and Zen are something you could actually look at as being a true decentralized way of answering. Actually, Horizon is the one that you would probably like, Rainmaker, because of the fact that it makes it really difficult for anyone to get that 51% power to be able to control the network in the way that it's designed architecturally. But Bitcoin, I think, is just going to continue being that speculative market perpetually.
Mm-hmm. Well, and this was a question that I had listed here, and actually Pony Lover just brought it up as well. Does anybody actually use Bitcoin outside of as an investment vehicle? I have my answer, but before I respond, does anybody actually use Bitcoin, or do we just use it to speculate in investment?
It's a terrible currency. The fees are astronomical. It's extremely slow to confirm things. There's millions of problems. Basically, everyone I know who's used it has lost coins here or there. So, some people do use it, but mainly out of spite.
I will tell you that there is a coworker of ours that lost $30,000 of Bitcoin because they fell victim to a Trezor hardware hack. Yeah, not cool.
That's actually a way better excuse than I have. I just forgot my full disk encryption password and my and that tablet's currently worth about 20 grand if I could ever unlock it.
Oh,
Well,
damn.
I lost a couple of Bitcoin on MT Gox when they got breached, and I never got anything back.
Their net worth is like several billion at this point, which just blows my mind. The hackers that stole it.
Where does where does the money go? And when people when these heists happen, it actually removes it from your wallet.
Well, Mt. Gox was basically an escrow, a trading market that was holding those coins. So they were basically in possession of your currency, and that actually got exfiltrated slowly over time to multiple wallets. And so, one, never trust a site that's actually named after Magic the Gathering trading cards. Also, that was completely built on PHP. So that should have been a red flag for everyone right then and there. But yeah, it's some weird, crazy stuff. Yeah, and your mic's real low. So Rex, speak up next time.
The
So
only reason the price of Bitcoin is so high right now is mainly because of Tether and the various stablecoins that are basically doing a really long and elaborate pump and dump scheme. Interesting enough, January 15th, Tether, the biggest stablecoin with 21 billion claims of cash invested in Bitcoin, backing up their stablecoin, has to provide a bunch of info, I think, to the Congress or something. And if they can't provide it, the whole thing might just crash.
the
So
same
good
thing
time
is
to
happening.
sell.
Same thing is happening apparently with Ripple XRP. I thought that was interesting as well. But the answer that I asked earlier about does anybody actually use it? I do, but just for very small expenses. Hacker 213 and I whenever I owe him money, I do it through Bitcoin. For my VPN service, I use Bitcoin. So there are certain places where spending Bitcoin is appropriate, just as much as any other cryptocurrency. I would just as much use Monero or Litecoin or whatever, but just using cryptocurrency in lieu of Venmo is simply the way I'm doing it right now.
I have a question. If you're using cryptocurrency to pay for your VPN, are you doing that for anonymity's sake, or what's the purpose there? And then what actions are you taking to prevent your wallet being tied to your identity, if that's the case?
Tor, anonymity, and for shits and giggles, just to say that I can.
Okay. All right. Good enough for me.
All right, so
Bitcoin's fantastic for doing crimes.
well, Bitcoin is not a good tool for obfuscating your tracks. It's been proven that you can, track it back fairly easily. If you're really looking to obfuscate your tracks, Monero, what'd you say, Whiskey's, what was the other one? I thought it was like Zen or something. But those are obfuscated ledgers that will hide the transaction, the amount, the source, the origins. So that's actually why you're seeing those sorts of cryptocurrencies being used in a lot of cyber crime. So Bitcoin has its purpose more or less as an investment vehicle for Luddite baby boomers. But for most of us, I do see it at some point it not being a viable investment vehicle, but that's just our thoughts. So, any other closing comments on Bitcoin before we move on to our next topic?
Nah, I'm good.
All right. So, Pony asked, "Does the dark web still use Bitcoin?" No, they don't. It's moved on to other forms of cryptocurrency. Let's see. We're going to move into our next topic: new toys, new gadgets, new gizmos. Has anybody since we've had Christmas, did anybody get any new tech gear? I'll show you my new toy. I got the new Samsung Galaxy. I'll show you right here. There, it's in the camera here. This is the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 5G. Take a look. Here's the camera. It's like a 7.2 tablet. So it folds out. It's got the screen right there. It's very cool. So I've enjoyed it. It's a little thicker than I would have preferred from a smartphone, but it's been a great kind of tablet phone combination. So I've really enjoyed that. Anybody else? Oh, it looks like we've got a fellow Fold user. Donovan, kind of what are your thoughts? Do you regret your purchase, or are you glad that you have one?
Actually, no, I love it. The more I use it, the more I love it.
Yeah.
Finding accessories for it is a little bit of a pain, but they are out there, and if not, you can just 3D print your own.
Yeah, I got myself a good
it.
case for it with the kickstand. I still looking for the front screen cover, but it's been a fantastic phone. The only problem that I find is for those that want to exercise, there's not really a good arm strap for it. Otherwise, it kind of has to bend and curve around your arm like such, and that's not realistic or practical. So, anybody have any other? Go ahead.
I was going to say I've got a phone stand for it, and I've got to keep it unfolded if I'm going to be using it. So, yeah, accessories are a little slim for it, but I like the direction Samsung's going with it.
Yeah, absolutely. The Samsung development team is starting to really leverage that foldable LED screen, OLED screen. There's two types of foldable phones right now. There's the more tablet, open up like a book, and they also released a Z Fold like the old Motorola's Razr phones that are the clamshells. Those are pretty cool too. So Motorola's coming. I'm sorry, Samsung's rolling out some pretty bitchin' new hardware. So anybody else using or want to kind of speak to their new mobile devices? I know we've got a couple of Google fans here. Any new phones? All right. The next thing I want to show you all is the Oculus Quest 2. Picked this up over the holidays. This is the new standalone VR replacement for Samsung's Gear VR. This is kind of a combination between Oculus and Facebook's collaboration. It's really nice. It's got, let's see, where did I have here? It's got a 1832 by 1920 resolution per eye, which gives really good clarity. USB-C connector. It also, if you have a VR capable machine PC, it can plug in via USB-C and do all the Rift applications as well. So I've definitely been a big fan of this so far. I know like Integral, Wu Ming, Jason Street, they're all Oculus users, but anybody on the line using their VR in any context?
I got a Valve Index, and I went that route just so I could avoid Facebook with the Oculus.
That's one of the drawbacks with the Oculus is the mandatory integration with Facebook. So tell us a little bit about your VR setup and what you're using it for.
Yeah, so I've got a AMD chip, I don't remember which one, 64 gigs of RAM, and a piece of crap video card because all the 3080s are sold out. So I'm kind of limited in my VR experience right now just because of the the video card bottleneck, but I mean, I really like it so far.
Very cool. And I remember paying attention into the Twitter group chat. What's your favorite accessory for your VR setup?
So I don't have any accessories just yet. I'm really looking forward to...
I thought it was the bath mat.
Oh, the bath mat. Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right. It's still in the middle of my living room. It doesn't ever leave. Yeah, I use the bath mat for orientation purposes so I know which way I'm facing and where the middle of my room is.
Isn't that clever? That's really smart, man.
Yeah. I highly recommend it.
What are your apps that you're using right now that you're for fun and games?
So right now it's mostly Beat Saber for the purpose of the workout in it. I got to try the Star Wars what's it called, Squadrons over Christmas break. on a different video card, and that was interesting. It hurt my eyes a lot, but I think that has more to do with the fact that I need to get the prescription lens inserts. That's an accessory that I want to get. So once I get my optometrist visit in this year, I'm going to be ordering those.
Well, I've been playing the Star Wars Vader Immortal. It's a fun game, but I was really disappointed that it was like the first in a series, and I only got about an hour of game time before the credits started rolling. So I was kind of disappointed, but hey, it was $10. You get what you pay for.
I've heard that game is fantastic.
It really is good. I look forward to doing the rest of the chapters, but yeah. Uber Kitten, which one? Tell us about this. The one that you're using.
I got this app called YUR Fit. It's free on Steam. I don't really know about the other platforms, but it basically just tracks how much you move and then tries to calculate calories from it.
Huh. Well, one of my New Year's resolutions was to lose 25 pounds, and so I've got about 35 more to go. So something like that, the fitness apps using VR is actually really, really poignant and applicable here. So that's fantastic. Thank you. One of the things that I like about VR is the practical applications outside of gaming. And so one of the applications that I've used is a virtual desktop streamer. So I can take my Surface Book and stream 3 different large, like 10 foot by 10 foot screens on my as a digital workspace. And I found that the resolution is a little lacking, but it's a really cool concept. And so as the technology improves, we're no longer going to have physical monitors. I think a VR headset's going to be kind of where we go in the future. So is anybody else doing any sort of like virtual desktops on their VR setups? Well, if you're not, you should. It's really cool. All right.
I've got
Honestly,
the app.
the coolest app that I've gotten has
Yes.
not been an app or technology or anything. It's been Ginger. So I've had trouble with motion sickness if I use, like, if it's not like teleport, it's a continuous. Even when I've tried to get used to VR, I've never really been able to get over it. But I bought some ginger pills and some ginger candies. And you eat a couple grams of ginger beforehand, and about 30 minutes, enough to digest. And, like, it's completely cures it for me.
Now,
It works that well.
is that for just motion sickness in general or relative to VR motion sickness?
Both, but it seems to work well for VR, better than like antiemetics and stuff, like prescription drugs.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm my daughter's car sick, and I actually played a VR chat game the other day, which did make me motion sick, which I will never do again. There were too many kids doing like role playing. No, I'm too old for that shit. So anyway, stay away from VR chat games.
Okay, boomer.
Exactly. Well, all right. So, any comments, questions, concerns on VR before we move on?
I'll say that Rainmaker, when you came to DHA and you showed VR years ago, you were showing that virtual desktop as one of the cool features of why you should use VR, and it was mind blowing. And I can only imagine how much better it is now, because it wasn't like a remote desktop session on the Samsung phone or something.
Well, it was a POC, and now it's legit. What you saw in that demo is viable now. So it is really impressive. That's why I've tried out Immersed Virtual Desktop. There's one other one that I've tried, and I feel like the virtual desktop is the most stable, but there are some really cool ones. And so, yes, the other cool thing that I did was at that DHA in particular was I loaded up some very inappropriate VR content and gave it to Woody, our professor emeritus of DHA, and got to show. It was kind of funny watching him kind of walk around virtually. But anyway, I digress.
It was.
All right. So we'll move on to kind of the next topic, because we've got another, 45 minutes, and then we'll be done. I have been tossing around the idea of getting an OSCP. I think it's for no reason just to say the fact that I did, but there are others out there that are actively working on this. I know Jason's actively working on it, among others. I was wanting to toss the idea around of setting up some sort of a virtual study group. If one, is anybody interested in doing this with me?
I thought I had already signed up.
Well, I know you have, but is anybody else interested in doing this? And if so, I'm looking to do this more midday versus in the evenings, because having a wife and children kind of take a lot of my time. But is there a day of the week that would be that you'd be more receptive to, Jason?
So right now, with the way my client load is right now, I would say Friday early afternoons usually.
Okay.
I'm usually then. If not, let me take a look at my calendar, and I bet you Mondays midday sometime would work.
Okay, yeah, we'll probably do sometime in the early afternoon. What I'm looking to do is go through the documentation, go through the questions, but also I've recently discovered tryhackme.com. It's very similar to Hack in the Box and some of those others, but I just really like their platform. The ability to spin up a attacker box and spin up victim boxes with just a single click is really easy. So I don't have to, keep a Kali VM on my machine. It's very handy. So I absolutely love TryHackMe, and if any of you did their Advent of Cyber Challenge, that was a lot of fun. It was 25 days of really kind of basic pen testing tactics, reverse engineering, malware analysis, also some blue team stuff. Really, really cool. So if you're interested in doing this OSCP workshop kind of group that we're putting together, we're also going to be doing a lot in conjunction with TryHackMe. Whether it's just using my account and we're just going to kind of bang up against a box, or if you want to have your own account, I think we're going to try to use TryHackMe. So and I know Jason's in, but if you are also interested and just want to see what it's about, feel free to just DM me and I'll get you the more details. But likely we're going to be doing this every 2 weeks, and so it'll probably be the first and second week of the month on sometime in midday. So if you're interested, let me know. All right, so we've covered solar winds, we've covered crypto, we've covered cryptocurrency, we've covered Jason's automation of pen testing. Let's see, is he on the call still? All right, so the vendor's gone. I want your input. What did y'all think?
He didn't buy us drinks?
No, he didn't buy us drinks.
Yeah, man, that sucked, because if he dipped out, we don't even get to, get to know the guy. To me, it was like a vendor pitch and not actually trying to be a part of the community. From that perspective, he could have just waited around. I know people have lives. I'm just being an ass.
Yeah,
because it's my role.
Well, he's out on the West Coast, and so he had to get back to work.
No, I got you. I understand completely. It's just, that would be my one thing from that perspective. But as far as the product goes, as long as you sold it as this complements your already scheduled pen test, so instead of, like he was saying, that 1 a year pen test, you augment that. You say, hey, you have that 1 week that is always shitty because you don't really have the time to do the recon or any of the things you really need to do to do a full pen test. You could have this kind of, run 3 times, a few months in advance to kind of build up your arsenal for your report before you even start diving in. And I think from that perspective, it'd be awesome. But I would never feel like you could honestly sell this as a replacement for a real human pen test. And
I wish that you said that on he was on there,
Well, I didn't want to, I didn't know how much time, and I wasn't trying to bust someone's ass, because I also have to deal with criticism as someone who has to give vendor pitches myself. So, in all honesty, as some feedback you could give him, That would be what I would say, is that don't be dishonest about what that product is. It's not replacing a pen tester. It's something that helps augment the role, though, and I could see it being valuable in that perspective. But if you were to ever say that I could get PCI compliance certified as a pen test, that would qualify as that kind of pen test, then I think that you're going to find those very companies get pwned for some PCI violation that wasn't discovered from an automated tool. We're just not there yet.
Yeah.
Depends on who your PCI auditor is.
Yeah, true facts.
But yeah, I didn't want this to be a vendor pitch. I tried as best as I could, but I did think it warranted some sort of live demo. And Jay is a good guy. He'll probably be dialing in weeks to come. So stay tuned. He's a legit dude. So I vouch for the guy.
I'm glad that you had him show it, because it is something that's worthy of us knowing about, so that we can think about it when we do have discussions with people about solutions and the pros and cons of these automated tools. Getting a demo, now we can kind of see, okay, well, it's basically a web GUI for Metasploit Hail Marys that you can configure. And, I can see how it's automating a lot of the things we would use, but as we all know, you need to actually investigate these things and have human eyeballs on the process, because there's so much you will miss if you don't.
Well, one of the things that I noticed was that the word list was limited to 200 kilobytes. I mean, how big is RockU? So I think that there is some opportunity to grow there.
But I do think that as long as they market it appropriately, then that is something that I totally am all about, right? Because we do need tools like this. We do need to look at ways that we can, make the life of a pen tester a whole lot easier, because what we currently do is really not effective, which we see time and time again. And every pen tester will lament to you over beers about how their scope is so shitty that they don't even know why they're doing things, or that they're getting so much low-hanging fruit, like they're selling about with this product. They're getting so much low-hanging fruit that they don't have time to really get into the things they want to look into, the higher hanging fruit. So I think that tool does have its place. Just sell it in the right manner.
So selling it as a complement to a pen test in lieu of one.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So like pen test light.
I think Whiskey said it.
More like VoldScan Plus.
I like that better.
I think Whiskey mentioned it. He said that this is ideal for like the low-hanging fruit. These are the things that go back 10 years. This is what the Nessus scans used to bring up. This is the new Nessus. The ones that will give you all of the, hey, you forgot to patch this box. Oh, because I didn't patch it because it wasn't in inventory. Well, now it's in inventory. This is your tool to get your. I'm going to audit my entire network. I'm going to get an idea of everything that's there. I'm going to find all the vulnerabilities. I doubt right now that it has all the extra stuff that a human can do. Like, oh, hey, look, this looks like it might take injection or SQL injection. Let me try doing SQL injection on these pages, which is what a pen tester would do. But it will get all your low-hanging fruits, like, hey, we realize this box hasn't been patched because it's still running Apache 1.9 or whatever. So I think this, as a tool, Whiskey's right. It's your complement to having someone go and do you a pen test. It'll get you low-hanging fruit and find all the weaknesses that you probably should have fixed ages ago. But in terms of grabbing all the big stuff, you still want to go and have someone come in later and wrap their fingers around it.
You know what? I kind of take back what I was saying. I forgot that, I'm used to just being around more capable human beings in life in general. Like, our community is just, we're doing this in our free time. So obviously we're more enthusiastic about our passion of security, right? So when you look at people who actually have the day job of pen testers, and we've met plenty of these people, and honestly, I think could replace a lot of the quality of the pen testers that are currently out there. So I might actually retract my statement a little bit, because when we think about the quality of pen testers that are out there today, I could probably replace a lot of those pen testers with this tool. So yeah, I think if you had a really capable pen testing team, this would be good instead of having to hire like 3 juniors and train them up for 2 years. This could totally be a replacement for that, I guess. But for a quality pen test, I think it would be a complementary tool.
Good point. All right. Well, I think we covered the automation pen testing in fairly good depth, and I was glad again that we had Jay to kind of show us the ropes. I think there's definitely some pros and cons, just in the realm of automation of something that is so near and dear to us. So I'm curious to see how this evolves. I'm curious, and I wish him the best of luck. So Sysis, we'll see them in the news, I hope. So good product. Let's move forward. This is something that's kind of a philosophical thing. I wanted to talk EDR, endpoint detection and response. There are a lot of different products out in the market, CrowdStrike, Symantec, Sophos. These are all like really great products, but they all have their own, again, pros and cons. What are your current thoughts of the tools that are available in the marketplace right now? Do you have favorites? What, if so, which ones do you like, and which ones are pieces of shit?
Man, I don't know if you want to get me started on this. I think someone else should talk because I can go on for hours about this topic.
That's why I asked. I knew you were going to be vocal on this, but let's let somebody from the gallery talk, and then you and me can chat about it.
Yes, please.
So, thoughts on the tools on the market currently right now? What are you using in your office right now? Not everyone at once.
See, Whiskey's going to have to take the next hour because no one else is talking.
All right, Whiskey. Tell me about what your thoughts are on Symantec versus CrowdStrike or Kaspersky or whatever else.
Everyone sucks right now, but it's not going to be the end of the world for too much longer. I think that the momentum that we're going, the paradigm shift that all of technology is going through, in the security realm, you look at the secure access service edge architecture. I think that methodology, this idea behind that, is really going to be the game-changing direction that everyone should be going in this endpoint protection space. It doesn't just encompass endpoints, but if we look at your endpoint protection companies, this is the direction they all need to be going. And some of them are going in that direction. And I think that there's going to be a lot of more of the acquisitions to kind of complete this portfolio. But the idea behind it is that you stop thinking about all of these siloed, network versus endpoint, DLP, CASB. All of that stuff needs to stop being individual products. And it needs to be integrated and aware of one another. And then, at a certain point, your security stack starts just becoming your whole IT infrastructure, right? So if you think about your IT management, you incorporate that into your endpoint protection. You can see your patch levels and all of these types of things. You think about your network connections and how you want to implement a zero trust network architecture. When you look at how all of this ties in and integrates this big picture that we've all been, pitching as vendors for so long, it's starting to actually culminate. I think we're still a few years out from it actually being a cohesive, real, tangible solution that people will be jumping at. But the progress is there. I mean, it's something that I've been very passionate about. I've been trying to build the stack myself with open source solutions, But the vendors that are going in that direction, I think it's really exciting and positive. And as far as specific vendors, I'm not going to mention any. You should just Google it, or you could go pay Gartner and Forrester for their insight. But the reality is that anyone who's not thinking about that type of architecture in the security space, if they're still trying to be that one trick pony, I think that the days are numbered. If they're unless they're looking at being acquired by one of these other companies, which is more than likely going to occur, right? I mean, almost every single vendor that I know that's a startup, their entire plan is to be acquired by a company. And when they do this, they're just another piece in the puzzle that all of these big companies are trying to create for this security stack. And I think that your major companies, especially the ones that have private equity backing, are going to start pulling the vendors together to make this picture so that it looks good for the markets, and it also really actually gets them entrenched in the enterprise space, because you're not selling one product when you have this architecture, you're selling the entire stack to a company. And one of those things that we always want to preach against to vendors is we don't want to be victims of vendor lock-in. So when you are now looking at the reality of your security stack is going to be so entrenched with your IT architecture in general, uh, as buyers, you have to really start worrying about the idea of putting all your eggs in one basket.
Don't you think that
So
what you
with
just said,
that,
though, Whiskey, that the consolidation of these tools into a single footprint is going to entrench you?
I think it will. I mean, look at what Microsoft's doing. Hell, they've got the best position for any security company because they own the operating system. So when you look at how, yes, we want to have this vertical integration of your security stack, right? You want to be able to have all of these things, like every single piece of your security stack under one house, because of the fact that in theory you get better integration, the data sharing, and all of that's cohesive. But at the same time, you run the risk of huge epic failures, like Slack being down as an example. When so many people rely on that one centralized resource and there's some catastrophic failure, then everyone else is affected. And when that's your entirety of your network stack, your security stack, your IT management stack, you start running into real operational concerns. So I think that as a buyer, you should be concerned about the vendor lock-in, even though that's going to become more of the lucrative reality that you're going to be pulled towards. And hopefully the market differentiates, and there are people who pull the stack together in a middleware type solution where they integrate via APIs with all of the other single,
Mm-hmm.
one trick pony things. I think that, there's opportunities there, but the reality is that in a very, very short amount of time, the security stacks that you'll see in the enterprise are going to be very consolidated. And it's a very beautiful thing when you see it work.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Well, Denovan just mentioned in chat that they're using S1, and basically talking about how robust the feature functionality is. That kind of leads me to a question I was going to ask is what makes certain tools better than others? What is it that makes S1 more robust than the other products? Denovan, do you have a moment to tell us a little bit about that?
I mean, my experience with other products is pretty limited to Norton, Kaspersky, McAfee, mainly the main players. But I've been using more and more of S1 over these past 5 or 6 months, and I mean its ability to designate. You can auto designate groups for you. It takes a lot of the micromanagement of how you manage the groups, the deployment, and just kind of auto sorts that stuff for you, so you don't have to manually assign each system, right? It basically auto recognizes it, but its detection and its detection is actually impressive, and the I guess the remediation end of it is great, and it's I mean I don't know what else to say about it. It's impressive from a full package standpoint. It's very impressive.
Right on.
You pull up a system and it pulls up the entire inventory for it, right? I mean, you can dump an entire drive scan from there. In fact, we just had to do that recently for an incident, and it dumped everything off that VM. So I mean, it's a good tool in my opinion. It's very good for like post incident forensics on top of like what it already does in detection. So that's just my opinion on it.
Well, that's what we asked for, so thank you, man. We appreciate it. -4 brings up a good point about feature functionality outside of the actual product. I guess that wouldn't be feature functionality then, but basically that Carbon Black's support has gone to shit since they got acquired. We see that when organizations are bought out by private equity firms or M&A, that the support can either go up or down. But do you guys feel that the level of support is a determining factor in whether or not you choose to use a product over another, or do you just look at the feature functionality?
I can tell you from my experience, when a prominent security company gets acquired by a company that doesn't understand what the hell they're doing, then it's not good for anyone. Like when think about it like this, right? Where you have your account manager, you have your sales engineer, and those are your people that you're going to be talking to, along with customer success manager, stuff like that, right? These people are who you have built the relationship with. This is why you are going with them ultimately, because there's product check marks and all of this, but you want to know when you're buying something whether or not that this is going to be something that you are going to sign off for 3 years, or when you're making that commitment. So I have to, as a buyer, be very, very aware of the fact that if I feel like this person is not responsive in the pre-sales process, how am I going to feel that I'm going to have the support that I need, the support that I need to even sell this to the higher up in my company, And so having that assurance that I'm going to get support, and hearing horror stories of other people who aren't getting support, is definitely going to be the main thing that I care about. I mean, if I'm going to buy something, I definitely want to make sure it's supported, because that's a pretty critical thing to not be supported, your security stack.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. We're just joking around in chat, but Log Me In, LastPass, Go to My PC, all of these were viably good products until they were acquired and their support turned to crap. So I do think that support is almost, if not just as important as the feature functionality. So yeah, good feedback there. And Dinovan, I'm actually real curious to hear your thoughts, and everyone else's really. Common issues. I want to hear your complaints. What are the problems with these tools, and from a security administration perspective, what do you want to bitch about? What are some problems? Nothing at all? So we just all love our EDR software? Okay.
Oh, I was muted. My bad.
No worries.
I mean, we just implemented Aquascan for our AWS environment, and that thing is it's not currently configured correctly, so it's dumping like 50 reports daily into our inboxes, and it's just like, this is too much crap to go through, right? It's too much garbage.
Can't see the forest through all the trees, right?
Exactly. So I mean, without proper configuration on these tools, same with the DLP software we're using, I have to go through and I have to manually set all the domains, the network endpoints, just set business units, and it's setting even the tolerances on what gets reported on this stuff is just, it's a lot of micromanaging on the program itself.
Now, which program was this again?
I'm sorry, this was ForcePoint. I don't know if you know them.
I've
DLP.
heard the name, but I was looking at okay, so they're DLP versus EDR.
Yeah,
so many TLDs,
right,
so we get confused.
My bad. Yeah, so it's data loss prevention software. We use that on top of Sentinel-1, and just customize. All right, so let's just say the deployments. There's no way for them to have a single package of an OSX deployment, right? It's a custom deployment that we have to build because it's deployed with a security cert, and there's no default profile you can push with it. So if somebody's not on the network that you're pushing it, if they're not on the VPN, they're never going to get the profile. So how do you get a profile out with a default install? Like, come on, man.
Well, funny enough, I don't want to be all salesy and shit, but we actually have a solution for that. From a least privileged and application control, we push policies via HTTP from a external source, especially since it's all SaaS driven now. So pulling policy, it's got to be a pull; it can't be a push. But that's how we've gotten around that VPN requirement is the fact that these agents have to phone home on a fairly recurring basis in order to pull down recent policy. So there's that way.
Right. The only solution in place is to have another server set up, being the outside facing server talking to these devices that aren't on the VPN. So
throw something out on the DMZ. Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly.
Well, and that has its own pros and cons too. But yeah, that's what now that everything's migrating to a SaaS application or as a service, I feel like that's going to be a challenge that's going to basically remediate itself over time. Just my thoughts.
Well, and we're moving entirely to a cloud environment. A lot of our local data centers are getting shut down, so they want to be completely modular. Is what the new buzzword this day is. They want to be completely centralist modular environment, right? So now all your IT guys are now certified cloud engineers. Yeah. So my biggest issue with the tools right now is the limitations on migration. So now that we're moving to the cloud, I got to move my servers to the cloud. Well, there's no real good migration solution in place for these things. There's no real backup, move, and then redeploy, especially for something like, S1, maybe not so bad, but DLP, I got to do a whole new deployment. I got to do a whole new package install. I got to do a whole new, and luckily we use, we're going to WVDs from Citrix. So it should be a little bit easier deployment on that end, but just one master image, set it up, and there you go. But you got to set up, which servers contacts what, so you're not overloading one server. Mm-hmm. So there's no auto server fallover, unfortunately. So some of these programs just have their own quirks that you wouldn't even really think about in an admin environment.
Well, that's what we wanted to hear is these sorts of complaints from that admin perspective. So that's really good to know. I'm looking through the chat here, and we've got actually some good topics to discuss real quick. Your Mask First brought up that Snowden, of all people, I think we can have a conversation just around that. But recently released his favorite OSs yesterday. Cubes. This is what Tinker was talking about a while back. Anybody use Cubes, and what's your thoughts? I haven't used it myself. I just recently switched to Parrot, and I'm loving Parrot.
Hey, sorry, I was away. Cubes. I've used it in the past. I did a crypto party about all these different security and privacy OSs, and so I kind of went through Cubes and Parrot and others. But Cubes is pretty cool from the concept of trying to kind of segment various activities and applications by groups of VMs and then color coding it so that you have complete isolation, and it's really nice for operational security concerns if you're doing stuff that might need that. But for data use, it is a very difficult workflow because it's just you're running simultaneous virtual machines and trying to go in between them. It's just not exactly something that I would want to use as my day-to-day operating system.
So is this fairly meta if you're running this in a VM, or does this need to run as bare metal?
Yeah, you definitely want to run it bare metal. And it requires quite a bit as far as resources. If you think about what you're running, it's multiple VMs. And one of the things that's nice about it is that you can run Windows as well, obviously because it's a VM, but it does seamless integration with the Windows. So you can just have the application windows open, and they've got their little color outline, but outside of that, it's relatively slow and sluggish. If you've ever used Parallels or any of the VMs that have the seamless mode, you know what I'm talking about. It's not really like you're having a seamless experience. Now imagine that with multiple VMs. It's messy, yeah.
Any other distros that you're particularly fond of, anyone?
Parrot's cool.
Yeah, I'm still learning it and figuring it out, but it's just, it works. It's very, the pen test distro has just about everything I need from it. It's basically replaced Kali for me, so I'm liking it a lot. All right. Well, we're getting a lot of chat going back and forth about loving and hating LastPass. This is interesting to kind of follow up on that. LastPass is looking like they're lacking some functionality, some support issues. So check out the chat log. I promise I won't wipe it this time. Any other topics, conversations, questions that you guys and gals and folks have on the table today? Any questions?
I was going to add, if you hate LastPass, you should check out Bitwarden. It's awesome, open source, basically your open source equivalent, and you can get a Rust server that you can run. That's way more performance. It's got way better performance than the official Bitwarden server. So check out Bitwarden_RS on GitHub. For the server, and then as far as the clients, you can use the official Bitwarden extensions and desktop and mobile clients. But it's pretty cool. You should check it out.
Ooh, unofficial servers, cool.
All right, folks. I think we're going to call it. We'll keep the chat going offline, but I think this is going to be it. We're going to call it for today. Stay tuned for next month. Hey, I forgot to mention, we actually have that COVID vaccine out. So who knows? Whiskey, any idea when we're bringing back DHA? I heard it was going to be when we had a vaccine, right?
Well, so we are for sure going to celebrate our anniversary. So regardless of what the situation is, I'm trying to put together the accommodations for a very special DHA event. So, even if it has to be outdoors, we're going to have a spectacular anniversary special. So it'll either be in May or June, but probably going to aim for June.
Are we up to 7 years now?
Dude, I don't even know, because the past 4 years have gone by so long, I don't even know what year it is.
It's 2020 extended at this point, so it's December 36th, 37th. I don't know, but anyway, looking forward to that. Whiskey, that sounds amazing. Preferably, I'd like mid-June. Sometime around my 41st, that would be great. So, yeah. Well, no idea when we're bringing back DHA, but until then, we'll be here the first Wednesday of every month, 7 p.m. So we'll keep doing this. Yeah, I like that. Season 2. All right, folks. Well, thank you again for your time. Come back here next month. Same bat time, same bat channel. Y'all have a good one. Take care.